Welcome to 1991 Movie Rewind, a podcast where we watch and review every movie released in 1991, from the all-time greatest classics to the critically panned and everything in between. We will rediscover forgotten fan favorites and uncover hidden gems as we explore the depths of direct-to-video. Join us in our celebration of the fun, unique, and diverse films of this highly underrated year. This week, we watched The Fisher King.
Hi, this is Nikki.
And this is Jon, and thank you for joining us on 1991 Movie Rewind.
Before we start, we are going to give another trigger warning, content warning. We'll be talking about mental illness, suicide, suicidal ideation.
Mass shootings.
Mass shootings, yeah.
So in The Fisher King, Jack Lucas is a radio shock jock whose comments incite a frequent caller to commit a mass shooting at a New York club before turning the gun on himself. Years later, Jax, played by Jeff Bridges, is still distraught and plans to kill himself when Parry, a mysterious homeless man played by Robin Williams, comes to his aid and informs Jack that he is the hero that Parry has been needing all along to defeat the Red Knight and retrieve the Holy Grail. Screenplay by Richard LaGravenese, directed by Terry Gilliam, and released on September 20th, 1991. First, I apologize if I mispronounced that name.
Richard, we can look it up.
Yeah, Richard LaGravenese, perhaps? Anyway, before we get into the meat of the movie, whenever we have a piece of physical media, we like to give the coming attractions, the previews. And in this case, we had a copy of the DVD, which had 4 previews on there. So not nearly as exciting as what we saw with Cape Fear in our video exploration with all those fun little older commercials. But we had 2 trailers, 2 for Robin Williams, 2 for Jeff Bridges. We had Jumanji and Awakenings for Robin Williams, which I don't remember Jumanji well enough.
I've seen both, and I remember watching Jumanji, but I think I watched that only once.
Yeah, I think it was like a one and done type of thing for me.
Yeah.
You could tell that the CGI graphics were very,
it's funny.
very outdated watching that trailer. But I kind of forgot the conceit that he was like a younger kid who got trapped in the game and then was brought back to life, 30-something years later. And then Awakenings, which I've never seen, a movie about Robin Williams working in a mental hospital, I believe, with Robert De Niro, who had been speechless for a long time and then starts to awaken and rediscover life. And it looked very, very sappy.
It is very sappy. It's kind of similar to what we'll talk about in a way.
Okay.
Just mostly mental illness and...
Yeah, some of the same scenarios and themes. And then for Jeff Bridges, they had The Mirror Has Two Faces, which was also written by Richard LaGravenese. And then also Starman from 1984, I think it was. So that was the oldest one, and honestly the most interesting out of the 4.
Starman is amazing, and we should watch that. I haven't seen that since I was little, and I used to really love it.
I don't think I've ever seen it. So, but oddly, no trailer for The Fisher King on the Fisher King DVD, which is very unusual back in those days. So I'm sure the Criterion edition of The Fisher King probably has it, but ours did not.
I mean, maybe whoever created the DVD was like, hey, if you like this movie and you like these actors, watch these movies that they're also in.
Mm-hmm. That are owned by our studio.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened. But yeah, so we'll show like little snippets of that on our website as well. Get you that nice little view of that CGI monkey in the car in Jumanji.
Well, my favorite part in that trailer was the boy being sucked into the game.
Oh, yeah, like his hands.
If we can find that.
Folding in half, yeah, that was fun. We actually ended up watching those after the movie, but, coming attractions, because trailers, previews, fun stuff. But let's get into The Fisher King. So you've seen this movie before, right?
Yes, I've seen this movie a lot.
A lot. Okay. For school, just personal enjoyment.
I think personal enjoyment. Yeah, it was on cable a lot. And, anything that was on cable, I stayed home a lot watching movies all the time. So if it was on cable and it was on during the mid-90s,
yeah.
I was watching it.
Yeah. I've only seen it the one time before, and that was as part of a school project for one of my English classes. I don't remember if it was junior or senior year, but it was one of many resources that we had to use for a term paper that we were producing. I think the class probably gave us like a list of different options that we could use to write a paper on specific topics and, religious themes and whatever else. And this was like one of probably 3 or 4 or 5 films that that we had to include along with other books to write this term paper. So it was very much a homework assignment and something that I didn't pay tons and tons of attention to because I knew I had to get through all this other stuff too in order to write the paper. So I have a very, very minimal memory of this movie before coming into it now. So it was like I was watching it for the very first time.
Okay.
Virtually. And I think that aside from the homework aspect of it, I don't know if I would have had the emotional maturity to fully grasp this movie back then.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I remember not liking it all that much when I saw it, and maybe it was partly because it was homework. But I think the other part of it is I just didn't fully grasp some of the themes that it was presenting, or not to skip too far ahead, but like when Jack is like yelling at Parry near the end of the movie, I probably took that too literal and thought he was like legitimately mad at Parry rather than like trying to convince himself that some of those things don't matter. So I think I probably just didn't fully grasp the context and some of the themes of the movie back then.
Huh.
But now I think I do. Maybe. We'll see.
I mean, growing up, I really liked this movie for some reason, even though it's very depressing. And I think I watched it a lot also because, Robin Williams is in it.
Yeah.
And then, but it also made me cry a lot. And I was also a little scared whenever they showed The Red Knight.
Mm.
That kind of scared me when I was younger. But other than that, I was mostly sad.
Yeah.
I like sad movies, I guess.
Well, maybe that was part of my problem too, because it was sort of presented to the public as a comedy, and it had Robin Williams.
It has moments.
And so I was like probably more in that mindset of, when I was a kid, I would, want to watch
like, Robin
comedies,
Williams, yeah.
like, Three Amigos and Spaceballs and like, stand-up comedy on A&E or whatever it was. And like I knew Robin Williams from, Comic Relief, and some of those other movies that he had done otherwise, but I still wasn't really used to him doing dramatic roles, even though he had in the past. I just had never seen any of those. So I think maybe that partly contributed to it as well. It's like I was expecting something that was more funny, and really it was only dubbed a comedy so it could have a better chance at Golden Globes, probably.
Was it nominated for under the comedy?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
That category? Okay. That's weird.
Yeah,
but
Golden Globes tends to have a very loose definition of comedy.
Yeah, I know.
And
whenever
every year they have like 1 or 2 where you see them in that category and wonder why.
Yeah, we always wonder, is that even funny?
Yeah. Like, is there
They had one
at
joke.
all? Yeah.
Okay, it's a comedy.
Right. It's like, they sing, New York in June a bunch of times. It's a musical. It counts as a comedy and or musical. So yeah, it's not a comedy. But it does,
dramedy.
It does have comedic moments in it, for sure. There's some comic relief, as it were. But yeah, In general, yeah, the movie deals a lot with the issues of homelessness and mental health. Like, almost exclusively, there is that bit of religion in there with the...
Yeah, with the story of the Fisher King trying
Which-
to find the Holy Grail.
Yeah, which I'm not very familiar with. I'm not sure if you know much about it.
Vaguely.
Ron Williams goes over the story at one point.
Yeah,
they're
he
laying...
tells a vague, like a very quick summary of
Yeah.
the story of the Fisher King.
Yeah, the main crux of it is basically... the main takeaway that I got from it was... At some point, this king who had been searching for the Holy Grail for a long time is sitting exhausted in his throne, and this fool wanders into the castle, and the king said, "Can you please get me some water? I'm really thirsty." And the fool gets him some water, and it happens to be in the Holy Grail, and the king is saying, "How did you find this? What did you do?" And the fool just said, well, "I don't know. I just knew that you were thirsty." And I think that's like the key line is, it was less about finding this object, is more about like, I need to help you. And that's, sort of like almost makes the material reward materialize because of the act of kindness, is what I got out of it. I wasn't 100% sure in this story who was the Fisher King and who was the fool at the end.
I think it was mostly, to me, the real Fisher King was probably Jack.
That's what I'm thinking too, yeah.
And then for me, this is, to me, this is like an unconventional love story it's two different love stories.
Uh-huh.
And it's
You
like
could argue three even, really. If you say Jack and Parry as
sure,
the love
like
story
their
themselves, yeah.
Yeah, their friendship with each
Yeah.
other. And, Jack as the real Fisher King because, he lost his ability to love, but, he gains it by the end of the film.
Yeah, he's completely lost and doesn't know what to do with himself, and he doesn't have a purpose in life. And the quest of him going to get the Holy Grail for Parry is Parry's way of giving him the chalice. That's him quenching Jack's thirst. So yeah, it could be taken either way, and I think that's one of the things that I like about how that ends. Since we just skipped to the ending.
I don't know. We can go back and forth talking about this.
Yeah. If we want to talk about the beginning of the movie, so Jack Lucas plays this radio shock jock. Very much, inspired by or, taken directly from like the Howard Stern model of things where he's saying, inflammatory things. He's,
like making fun of his phone caller, like the people that call in, it sounds as if the people that do call in are regulars because the guy that does shoot up the place, he's like, "Oh, so and so, it's Edwin. You again,
it's Edwin again.
Okay, it's Edwin again.
Perpetual loser.
Like, what's your problem today, Edwin?" And it's just making fun of him.
Yeah,
but he's making fun of everyone that calls in.
Yeah, he's making fun of everyone, and the idea is that he assumes that everyone's in on the joke and making sure that they're not taking it seriously, but Edwin is the sole exception. And so Jack's living the high life. He's about to possibly star in this new sitcom and everything and get out of radio and go into TV. He has the big New York apartment and everything. He has the money, he has the girls, he has the limo and everything else. And then the mass shooting just kind of ruins his career, but I think more importantly, it shows that Jack is ruined and mentally by the whole thing. It's part of his issue isn't that he lost his fame and fortune. It's more about he doesn't know what to do with himself anymore, and he feels this incredible guilt for possibly being responsible for this shooting, since Edwin took his words to heart and then killed people, including what ends up being, we learn, is Parry's wife.
Yeah, it's one of the people in the bar that he shoots up.
Yeah. And that's how Parry became Parry, is that he went into a catatonic shock and then came out as this person who believes that he's seeing magical beings, and he's, on a quest from God to get this Holy Grail back.
Yeah, he goes into this catatonic state, and, this hallucinatory, finding the Red Knight that terrifies him, which I feel like that Red Knight is probably grief coming.
Yeah, I think
it's like his PTSD, and then also maybe schizophrenia in a way with the hallucinating.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of the grief aspect. I think in terms of the visual representation as well, I think it is meant to be something of personified by Edwin, because like the horse has all these flowing red like tassels and whatever else in there, and the knight's suit shoots out flames from like the helmet.
Okay, yeah.
And everything, and so I feel like that might have
that signifies Edwin.
Yeah, like the shotgun
like,
blast,
no, this is gonna happen,
and like the blood splattering, and like
I mean, yeah, it is very traumatic because she gets shot his wife gets shot in the head, and her brains basically splatter onto his face.
Yeah, which they show, and I can't.
Which they show, yeah, and which is that is traumatizing.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a very graphic reveal near the end. But yeah, I think it's grief with that, more visceral reminder through the visual side of it as well. So before we even meet Parry, though, I think, so Jack is down on his luck in terms of his career, but now 3 years later, he's working in a video store with his current girlfriend, Anne. Right? Is it Anne? Yeah, it's Anne. Mm-hmm. Making sure it wasn't Annie. I was just misremembering there. But completely unsatisfied with his life. But, Anne is supporting him in every single way possible.
Right. I mean, she gives him the job to work there. She's living with her. And
and yeah, he's basically like leeching off of her at that point. And she's starting to get sick of it. It's really hard for him to shake what has happened and try to move on from his life, which... it's been 3 years, but I think that's probably very understandable still. I don't know.
Yeah.
If you feel personally responsible for this type of tragic event, really hard to deal with that. And so, he stumbles into alcoholism, I'm sure. And at one point he goes under a New York bridge, and he straps cement onto his shoes and is ready to kill himself. And that's when a couple of young thugs pull up in like this nice little race car thing, and look to beat him up.
Yeah, they just come to that area because that's where all the a lot of the homeless people live, and they just come by and they're like, "I'm sick of you people. I don't like it."
Yeah, they're trolls under the bridge saying, "We're sick of the homeless.
Taking advantage of our city or whatever like that."
And so they're prepared to beat and kill Jack. And that's when Parry and another group of homeless.
Like vigilantes or something.
I was going to say like renegades. Like neither of those words are whatever. He pretends to be a knight. He speaks in like knight talk.
Yeah, and they're all dressed up as if they were cosplaying, medieval times or something.
Yeah, and then they save Jack, and that's how things get rolling along.
Oh, side note: one of the punks was played by Dan Futterman, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, Dan Futterman,
he was in the Birdcage with Robin Williams.
Yeah, he ended up playing Robin Williams' son in the Birdcage a few years later. Also, he was a cast member in SNL during the down years. Like, like the sixth season when all the Lorne Michaels was no longer in control.
He's in a very interesting episode of Sex and the City too.
So that's one of the punks. And they make a repeat appearance later on in the movie.
Yeah,
too.
they come back later on, and I'm thinking, do those punks come every day to underneath that bridge, or once a week or once a month, saying, "I'm sick of you people," because they say the same thing, saying, "I'm just sick and tired of you people taking advantage of our city."
Yeah, it really could.
And
be.
they just pick a random homeless person to beat up, but they almost kill because they're like slashing him with a knife and.
Yeah, I think that honestly probably is their intention.
To kill.
Yeah, and they probably could get away with it because.
Yeah.
How much attention is given to murders of homeless people? Unfortunately, it's not very much, and who would report it, and So yeah, I think that's part of the issue and part of the story it tells. Just how the homeless are treated in society, and I don't think it beats you over the head with the various different aspects of it. I think it just slowly kind of introduces these themes like, yes, these people are sometimes sought out, unfortunately, for violent acts. I think a lot of it has to do with like the financial aspect of, how everyday New Yorkers, meaning, just normal everyday people interact with the homeless in general. Like there's that scene in the Grand Central Station with the man in the wheelchair played by an uncredited Tom Waits.
Yep.
Who will appear in, I think,
he's in
4 more 1991 movies beyond this. Up to.
I did not know that. I just knew he was in Wrist Cutters, and I was like, oh, it's Tom Waits again.
Yeah. He's been in a bunch of stuff. Obviously, also known for his music. But yeah, he's going to be in like Queen's Logic and a couple other ones in 1991. But yeah, so Tom Waits is there talking to Jack. And he says, someone drops a coin in his cup, and Jack says, that guy didn't even look at you. And Tom Waits says, yeah, they pay so they don't have to look at me.
Yeah. I mean, that was, and I like that part. It was just very interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of those interesting lines in the movie that, they don't go too deep into it, but they say what it needs to say.
Right.
Along that comes with the stigma of mental health. I think a lot of people assume that people who are homeless may suffer from mental health issues at the same time. I think that's sort of, unfortunately, something that goes hand in hand with each other. And that's personified a lot with Robin Williams' character, who is obviously very much down on his luck, had a major traumatic episode in his life, and is suffering from some sort of mental health issue here because he thinks he's this other person. His real name is not Parry. It's Henry Sagan, who was a professor at a college in New York, and then he becomes Parry after the incident, which is supposed to be representative of Percival. I don't know how well the movie portrayed mental health.
I mean, the whole mental hospital scenes were weird to me because it didn't really seem as if they were being really treated, quote unquote. I mean, they were just there in a room on beds, and I don't know if they just keep them there just, so they can have a bed and food, but nothing else. Like no actual mental health treatment, no psychiatrist or psychologist coming by to actually speak to them.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of them, they were portrayed as, I don't know, like the stereotypical type of people where they are just, sitting there looking off into space and like drooling on themselves.
Or, pacing back and forth, or just,
people in straitjackets, like clearly acting, like what you see as crazy people in like cartoons or something. And I think that's largely true aside from two people, which would be Parry, who has, I think we'll get into Robin Williams' performance in just a second. And then also there's this other homeless person that they meet in Central Park after chasing the Red Knight for the first time, I think, is when they come across him.
Yeah, because
the homeless cabaret singer who's laying
that was
in the
the
middle
other
of the road.
thing is people are horseback riding in the middle of Central Park because that's how it happens. He's on a trail, and
I thought he was just laying there waiting for someone to run him over.
Okay, maybe maybe that.
He was
but
like asking to die by being run over and trampled by a horse.
Okay, because I mean he's screaming, "Help me, help me!" and then a person on a horse comes by,
and he was like asking, "Yeah, please run me over." Yeah, but I don't know if that was sarcasm. If he was there because of that,
that could be another thing where he just wants to kill himself, but he doesn't want to do it himself, so he's asking people to kill him,
or if it was just him looking for attention and just saying, "Please, someone pay attention to me." It's tough to know, but I think his character as well had obviously some bits of quote unquote crazy because of those types of moments, but in general was just very someone you could really find a lot of humanity in, and someone that was just a fascinating character just on their own. They happen to be homeless, but they're just this interesting eccentric person that they come along. And that was I don't think they ever gave him a name in the movie. I think he's just like, I forget what they call him in the credits, but played by Michael Jeter, who some of you may know from the shows Evening Shade or Picket Fences. He was nominated for a Golden Globe in 1991 for Evening Shade, and he won an Emmy for that role, and he was also nominated for 2 more for that show, and also nominated for Picket Fences at one point, and a guest spot on Chicago Hope. And then later in life, some of our younger viewers may know him as Mr. Noodle's brother, Mr. Noodle, on Sesame Street / Elmo's World.
Yeah. Yeah, he was just known as the homeless cabaret singer.
Okay, yeah. So they didn't give him a name, but they gave him a good part. And he was just fascinating to work. I think, I hope he at least got some consideration for like a Best Supporting Actor award at some point. Even though he never made any of the lists that I saw, I think he was underrated performance, if so. So he had a couple scenes. One was in the hospital where they tried to take care of him, and he tells his life story. We also learned that he was also part of that event. He was singing at the club when Edwin came and shot all those people. So Jack just can never escape the tragedy. Everywhere he goes, every key character he meets is somehow related to this thing that he
their trauma.
Yeah, he possibly caused. And then he tries to redeem his character by allowing Michael Jeter's character to sing later on.
Yeah, in the movie. When he tries to help Parry.
When he tries to help Parry and gets...
get a girl.
Lydia video membership. We can maybe talk about that in a second, too. I don't know. But yeah, I don't think the movie handled the mental health aspect of it all that well. I think Robin Williams definitely came closest where... Yeah, he's talking to people, right, that don't exist. Mm-hmm. He believes that he's this knight sent by God. He thinks that there's this Holy Grail in this castle in the middle of the city.
Yeah, after that incident, he does go to that mental hospital, but they don't say for how long he was there.
Right.
And then they just, after he's quote-unquote done being there, I guess... They brought him back to where he lived with his wife, and the either it was a neighbor or their
superintendent type
super,
of guy,
the super of the apartment building that they lived in, just felt bad for him and allowed him to live in their boiler room for free.
Yeah, so he's living down in the basement.
But yeah,
of the
they
building.
don't. They just kind of, I don't know what, that was the thing. I don't know. They don't really treat these people. He just stayed there for an X amount of time. And then after that's it, he's just back to, they're like, okay, go back to your normal life.
Yeah, he's just out on the street. It's like, oh, you woke up and you're talking now.
Yeah.
You know
now
how to
you
eat.
can, you're able to do regular functions.
Yeah. So we don't know exactly what that is. I'm sure part of it was just the aspect of, oh, nobody can pay for this. Nobody's going to pay for this. Goodbye.
Yeah.
So even though he has those aspects to his life and how he thinks he's this other person, the performance from Robin Williams, I think, is really what brings, a large amount of like empathy and grace to this character. Like, he's this very complex person, and there's like a little bit of, wackiness and goofiness in the way he talks, and like how he's, sometimes comedic, but like he can switch at a moment's notice to like, telling this offhanded joke and then having just an immense amount of pain in his face. It's this massive range of, humanity in there, and it's hard not to root for this character.
Yeah,
You really want everything to go perfectly for him. And I think that there's probably no real bad guy in this movie aside from the two thugs who try to purposely harm and kill. But Edwin, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, Edwin also suffered from a mental illness as well.
Yeah,
so.
They don't really get into that too much. But I mean, like, something that the movie does well is, I think that, they turn Jack into somebody who is still trying to hold on to the I don't care about the people lower than me aspect of his life, especially when he is able to get a second chance later on in the movie. But overall, they do turn him into somebody who does have that depth, who does have, I don't know how to explain it, but you know what I mean? Like, he's not a one-dimensional thing. He's very tortured. He has he cares about the people that he's surrounded by, even though he doesn't want to, and he becomes better for it in the end. All this time we haven't talked about Anne.
Yes.
All this much. What do you want to say?
I love Anne, and I love Mercedes Ruehl.
Yeah, so we haven't talked about Anne too much, played by Mercedes Ruehl. She did not have a whole lot of credits to her name before this. I think she maybe got a start, or no, not a lot of big credits before this. She was in Married to the Mob, and I think her biggest role was that she was the mom in Big.
Yeah.
With Tom Hanks, of course. And then after this, she went on to great success in Lost in Yonkers, especially on Broadway, and also played the mom in Last Action Hero.
Mm-hmm.
But then sort of probably fell victim to the typical Hollywood issue of older women not finding roles that suit their needs, and so it's a lot of guest spots and
they may have just
smaller
they
parts
always
and whatnot.
typecast her as the loudmouth Italian woman or something like that.
Yeah. But we'll see her again in 1991 for a movie called Another You with Richard Pryor. But yes, so, I mean, she's absolutely amazing in this movie. She's another. I think just in general, like all of the characters, it's just amazing how complex everyone is.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just fantastic and fascinating writing that there's so many different layers and aspects of these characters in such a relatively short amount of time that each one gets on screen. So yeah, I mean, we'll get into the awards that she won, but she did win awards for this performance.
Yeah, and she deserved it.
I think one of her key quotes, since we're talking about here and there, like quotes that get to us, is like she says that she thinks that marriage is basically, God and the devil getting together and trying to work things out. I thought that was an interesting.
Yeah, I think a lot of the stuff that she said about relationships and men and stuff really, that's kind of, I think me just growing up and watching these movies, just like with Sleeping with the Enemy and then this, through other stuff too, I was kind of like, why do I want to be in love if this is what love is?
Right.
So me as like a 11, 12-year-old, 13, whatever, watching these movies, I'm just thinking in my head that why would I want to be in a relationship if it's like this?
Yeah, where it's just like not fully reciprocated, or if it's like conditional based off of...
Because she is obviously in love with Jack, and then, near the end, he, when he starts to get back into feel better.
He thinks he's solved
everything.
He
gets a second chance at a job, and then she's like, okay, let's get another place, let's do this and that, and then he wants to take a break, basically, and that's when she goes off on him.
Yeah.
And she's like, I love you, and then he's like, why do you even love me?
Yeah, and Jack is, as soon as he gets that whiff of success, he's thinking about all the different things that he could leave behind, and doesn't consider all the things that Anne had done for him for years at that point. But yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame you for thinking that way. I'm sure there's probably going to be plenty more examples of this where the man is a total asshole, and the woman doesn't deserve that. And then sort of not really contrasting, I don't think that's the right way to phrase it. We have Lydia, who is the love interest of Parry, played by Amanda Plummer. And she is a very, very eccentric woman.
Yeah, I like her character. I like her too. I like both the women in this movie.
Here's the thing. I like her character, but I don't know if I would like her in real life if I had to interact with her.
Right, yeah, because she's kind of like a, quote, Karen in a way. Because she's, she was talking about when she was getting the free membership, she's like, I'll do this if it's free. And like, is that free? And she's like, you told me this is free, so I want it for free.
Yeah.
And then she just started going off.
Very quirky, very combative.
I wouldn't want... I can understand...
paranoid in her own ways.
I understand that she seems like she doesn't have any friends. Like, she just keeps to herself.
Mm-hmm. And
you kind of tell, like, at her job, she doesn't really speak to anyone else. And we come to learn it's because she keeps her defenses on the highest level at all times. She keeps her walls basically up, but it doesn't really... They don't explain why. That's just how she is. She's very mousy. She also kind of, even when Parry's following her around and, she's coming out of the building that she works in and going through that sliding door. Mm-hmm. She's, even kind of fighting through that. Yeah. Because people are whizzing. People are whizzing around her and just like going in front of her, pushing her out of the way. And she's like, like, I can't even get through the door type of thing. Yeah. And apparently that's her routine because Parry knows that, exactly she does that like every single day. And she always does a loop around the revolving door and because she gets pushed around. Another good quote that I wrote down was when they were waiting for her in Grand Central Station. And Parry's like, like clockwork, she's here every time, every day. Oh, she's late. like immediately says that she's late after he says, oh, no, she's here at the same time every day. Mm-hmm. She'll be here. Oh, she's late. And then that leads to a scene where she's walking through the train station and Parry is following her. And then everyone starts waltzing around. And it's a surprisingly long but very beautiful sequence of
showing what's going on in Parry's head of like, you know, basically.
Yeah, they
The
play
world
this very
revolves around her.
whimsical music, and he's just following her around lovingly.
Yeah.
I like that scene.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And then she goes out of view and everyone goes their own separate way. So I think it's kind of this is what Doc Hollywood was trying to do in
Oh God,
you know,
I don't
in that carnival scene of like saying like,
okay.
oh, we're in our own little world. And,
Okay, like everyone else
disappears and we're dancing and we're falling in love. Like this is that, except sort of the opposite, where everyone is dancing around them and he's falling in love because, you know, she makes the world dance.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So yeah, complete opposite of Doc Hollywood. Never thought you'd make that comparison on this, would we?
Well, I don't know. We're making a lot of comparisons.
Yeah, we're going to try to talk about 1991 movies in comparison to each other, right? So I actually kind of want to take a detour and talk about Terry Gilliam as a director, since we're talking about this scene and how it was sort of formatted a little bit. I thought this was fantastic. I think he really did a great job of giving a lot of that Brazil vibe. Have you seen Brazil? You've seen Brazil, right? So, you know, you get a lot of, you know, some of those same like fisheye lens moments. You get some of those things where you have close-ups and people like looking into the camera all frantic, especially at the beginning, where you have like Kathy Najimy as the annoying video store customer and stuff.
It also gave me like 12 Monkeys vibes, just like with the mental hospital.
Yeah, same type of thing. You got the exaggerated spaces, you know, just general distortion, and obviously like, you know, trying to make things as visually interesting as possible. Like, you know, even in that opening scene where Jack is talking on the radio, we don't see him specifically. We're like swinging the camera overhead in this small little radio booth to try to make things sort of dynamic, and he's kept in the shadows the whole time, except you just have like a close-up on his mouth of the microphone. So, I mean, I think he did a really fantastic job of capturing that quirkiness of the world and of these characters through the directing and the camera work. But maybe part of the reason why he didn't get as much attention is because it was so Brazil-like.
Like, it's just too weird.
Or that he was just, you know, doing a lot of the same stuff he had done.
Just all his whimsical...
Yeah. Like it was too samey, perhaps. I don't know.
He just does it in his... Like, that's maybe his signature, you know, he's got to do something like that.
Yeah, it could be. I think, you know, he focuses a lot on, you know, the visual and the distortion and trying to make things look realistic, but still just slightly off. Same thing with, like, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. He does the same type of tricks and tactics there, too. So... But yeah, very much a Terry Gilliam movie, but I think it's probably one of the best acted ones that he's ever put together. So, yeah, just a fantastic cast. So let's talk about Parry and Lydia. So we talked about how she is his crush, and Jack gets this idea in his head that he needs to make things right by Parry by letting him like love again and introduce her to him and set them up on a date. And so they give Parry like this temporary job in the video store and convince Lydia that she has won a free membership, and that's, you know, where we talk about.
They also bring in the cabaret singer to her job to sing that you won a free membership at this video store.
Yeah. Which is a wonderful sequence. I loved that number.
Right.
I don't know why it was
office
necessary,
she works in
though.
is really interesting to me because it's too leveled, and she's like in a pit with 20 other cubicles. They're all kind of open, but they have these glass partitions between them. But then above it, there's a railing of people all around because everyone's looking down on her.
It reminded me of, like, I don't know, like a bigger library, you know, like a downtown library type of location, except instead of bookshelves, you have
office,
cluster of cubicles that people can look down
gear,
on.
and you've got like cabinets and whatever between them, and then cubicles. But then above was that railing, and people just stopped and they're looking down that railing.
It was a really cool spot. But yeah, so this cabaret singer comes in with, like dressed in like this, what is it, like a red sequin dress or something like that, and high heels and whatever else, and like has balloons, and coming in to do this big long production number, which in real life, I mean, why would you need to go to someone's office to give them a card and do a dance number?
They don't. Parry doesn't know where she lives. I don't think he just knows where she works.
That could be. And
he only knows that her name's Lydia. Wait, I don't even know if
they learn. Yeah, Sinclair.
Okay.
Yeah, they learn her name, and that's how they're able to find her and call her.
Right. Yeah. And they find out where she works, and then he just busts in.
Mm-hmm.
And she's very embarrassed by all of this, yeah.
But it's a fun performance.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, then she goes to the video store, which is weirdly put together. They have boxes of videos on shelves that don't have backings on either side.
The way that these... it perplexes me.
But I still want to go.
It boggles my mind how these... Store. I know. I want to go there too, but the way that these... videos are displayed, they're just the empty box standing up as if they're like, cards when you make the castle out of like a deck of cards.
Right,
they're
like
very flimsy.
Yeah.
And I don't know how people could even walk, because they're very thin, aisles, and if one bump knocks every single movie down.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And it happens.
And it happens millions of times when she goes into that video store. And then, Anne is just not into this.
No.
But she's doing this to help Jack, to help Parry.
Exactly. Yeah, so Anne is going along with it because she loves Jack. Mm-hmm. And Jack wants to hopefully redeem himself, and that's how he thinks that it's going to happen. And so at that point we get into like a little bit of a diversion into this romantic comedy bit where they end up going to dinner and all kinds of like weird little cutesiness happens, and Parry's like trying to mimic her actions at dinner at the Chinese restaurant.
Make her feel. I like that scene a lot too.
It's fantastic. And then everything goes fantastically well, and they kiss at the end of the date. And that's when, like, the flush, the rush of regret
like
and
fear
guilt
and regret,
fear and everything hits Parry again.
His trauma hits him.
And sees Edwin and the Red Knight, and all his memories start to come back. He starts to sort of relive who he is because of this. And goes into a catatonic state once again. And the white pinstripe suit that he's wearing sort of gets turned into a straitjacket. Again, so it's sort of like mirroring his past in that way too. And so he makes his way back to that bridge where those two guys are waiting and beat him up and cut him, and he's left for dead and in the hospital, speechless. So in the meantime, Jack has gone back to his old ways because he didn't know that anything had happened or was starting to.
Yeah, he and Anne think that they did a good deed. They did what he was meant to do to help him, and they go home. But then, he gets that phone call because I think Jack's wallet is on Parry.
Yeah, Jack had loaned Parry the wallet to help, him pay
for other stuff
and whatever else. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so that's the only reason he was notified. But, I mean, yeah. So I forget at what point Jack gets the second chance.
His manager, who is played by David Hyde Pierce, calls him about, they want to do... Remember they wanted to do...
They wanted to do a different
another sitcom, but it's about homelessness.
About homeless people.
Because I think maybe Jack... They don't really show this, I don't know. maybe Jack has, pitched this idea to him saying, hey, I have this idea about, me befriending a homeless man. I don't know.
I don't know. I think it might have been coincidental or meant to be.
Because I thought they wanted to do a TV show about, him and a homeless man being friends.
Right. Something. I think I'm getting the very end sort of confused with things. So the dinner goes well and he calls his agent saying, I'm ready to work again. And he says, great, I have this opportunity for you. And then he learns about Parry being in the hospital. And then he goes to the meeting. He hasn't had his success yet. He just thinks he's starting to have his success yet. I kind of get the timeline mixed up, I guess. Mm-hmm. But either way, on the way to the meeting, he sees the cabaret singer again who, is saying, hey, Jack, remember me? Hey, how you doing? And Jack just blows him off, completely ignores him and starts to go back to his old ways. And then... Yeah,
because he, in his mind, he's like, I helped
too good
Parry.
For you again. Yeah, I don't need to deal with you anymore.
Right.
I did my thing. But wasn't quite to be. And so, they finds out about Parry in the coma. And Lydia is also now showing up to the mental hospital.
That was another thing that confused me, because how did they get her info? How did they know that to call her? Or how did she know that he... Unless, I don't...
Unless, that wasn't fully explained.
Because, before the night... After their night eating at the Chinese place, she's talking about, about her issues with dating. Mm-hmm. And, she was saying, you're going to come upstairs. Something's going to happen. We'll exchange numbers. You'll never call me. Like, she's just assuming all these things that's going to happen, even though they haven't even happened yet.
Right.
So... But the other thing was that she's like, okay, you can call me, but he never gives... Like, she never gives him her number.
Yeah.
But I think... I don't know, how did she know that he was in the hospital?
My only guess is that she has the free membership to the video store. Anne and Jack are not together, but... She goes to the video store, sees Anne, and Anne knows about it
her.
And tells her, oh, yeah, he didn't blow you off. This is what happened. And this is where he is. Yeah. That's my only thing that I could assume, but they could.
Before the whole date, they become a little bit friends with each other.
Right. So I think there would have been enough of a relationship there, or she might have come in and said, hey, where's Parry? I haven't seen him, or, I know he works here, so what's going on? And they could have said. So because Parry's in this coma, Jack thinks the only way to do anything for him is to retrieve the Holy Grail from the castle in Central Park, or near Central Park.
Yeah, well, in the beginning of the movie, Parry shows a picture of this guy who's an architect. And in this magazine, there is a picture of, this cup that looks like the Holy Grail next to him. And Parry's like, I need that.
Yeah,
that is the Holy
Grail. I need this. So you're going to help me get it because I cannot get in there.
Yeah, and it's this guy's castle-looking townhouse near Central Park, I guess. So that he has to break into.
He has to break into it. So it becomes like a little mini adventure, a mini heist with
himself
80s adventure music and everything in there. And then Jack starts to go a little bit crazy because he's starting to see Edwin in his mind, and he hears the horse of the Red Knight on his way up, and so everything is starting to flash into his brain too. And then he gets the Grail, which he sees as just a cheap trophy,
right.
Not an actual Grail, but he grabs it anyway, leaves out the front, setting off the alarm, which ends up saving that homeowner's life because he had either accidentally or purposely overdosed on something and was about to die. Mm-hmm. And then the alarm came and that saved him, and they reveal that through like a newspaper article. And then gives the trophy to Parry, and after a little bit of time, Parry awakens and all is right with the
all
world.
is good.
For the most part. Except he's still Parry, you know, he remains Parry.
Yeah, he remains as Parry. He doesn't go back
go back to Henry. Yeah.
You know, yeah, himself, I guess, his actual self.
But Lydia is there now. So I think it is sort of like, you know, he has this new life as Parry.
So
it's Lydia.
He's moving on to this new life.
Yeah, with this new person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, you know, is he, quote, cured now? But, I mean...
Yeah, they don't get into that at all. It's a very, very quick ending after everything is resolved. Other than to show that Jack and Parry remain friends and that they are cloud busting in Central Park at the end of the movie.
They're completely naked, laying in the middle of the park.
Yes, using their naked energy to make the clouds bust apart in the sky. And then you see fireworks in the sky, and the end is written in lights, and everything is
the ending was
again.
very whimsical again at the end, with fireworks and all the lights go on in the buildings in New York skyline, and they start flashing back and forth. And then, you know, the lights go up. Yeah, the lights go up, and it says "The End" in bright lights.
Yeah. Very fun ending. Very, very satisfying for me, at least. So yeah, I think we probably went through a lot more details of the individual plot points than we typically do, but there's just so much to kind of explain to get, you know, to fully understand these characters. You know, you kind of have to go through those plot points to understand what these characters have gone through. And again, I think, you know, the performances all around are amazing. I do want to call out a couple of, like, random people throughout the movie.
Yeah, you gonna do a pause on the credits?
Many, just sort of like shouting out some people who had very minor roles, but I think were important just in general. So first off, I'll start slow. We got Pat Fraley, who was one of the callers at the beginning. I only mention him because he's also the voice of Krang from a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. I just thought that was really interesting that Krang was one of the callers at the beginning of the movie. There's the superintendent. Was a guy named Al Fan. I only mention him because he's, I think, our first repeat performer. He was also in Naked Gun 2. He was the guy who held the bomb and said, this clock is 4 minutes late. And then it blows up.
Okay.
So he's now been in 2 of our movies. Probably the first person to appear in 2 of our movies. Ted Ross was the first bum. That bum is what he was credited as. Scene at the beginning of the movie where Jack is still famous in the limo, where he's, like, you know, picking his teeth at the window and everything else like that. He played the cowardly lion in The Wiz, both on Broadway, which he won a Tony for in 1975, and then also in the film version. He was also later in, before this movie, he was also in Arthur 1 and 2. Personal favorite of mine, William Preston played John the Bum, who had a good line about, you know, someone asked him, you know, what do you think of the death penalty? And he's like, well, death's definitely a penalty. It ain't no fucking gift.
Yeah, that guy.
That guy had a recurring role on Late Night with Conan O'Brien as Carl Oldie Olsen, which I watched all the time as a kid. So I'm very familiar with Carl Oldie Olsen. He played that role. Recurring until a week before he passed away in 98. The guy who played Edwin, Christian Clemenson, he won an Emmy for his role in Boston Legal and was nominated 2 more times for that show. And so he was on 50-plus episodes of Boston Legal as well as 50-plus episodes of CSI Miami. So he went on to have a pretty good TV career. And we already talked about Michael Jeter. So yeah, like Tom Waits, where I talk, you know, there's all kinds of people in this movie, just fantastic performances all around. You got Harry Shearer in that sitcom part.
Yeah, who supposedly the
Jack should have had.
Yeah, his role that was taken from him, I suppose, for the TV show that was supposed to be about his own life.
Yeah, something like that, and
or loosely based on
him, and he had the Steve Martin knockoff catchphrase of "Forgive me."
Yeah.
which probably could be, taken a whole bunch of different ways in this movie if you want to sort of use that catchphrase and apply it to Jack in terms of the storyline. And then we have the leads, so we can sort of use this to talk about the awards and nominations of the movie, unless there's anything else we missed.
No.
All right. So in terms of awards and nominations here, so we have... well, let's talk about Amanda Plummer as Lydia. So I just want to mention that she has, done a bunch of stuff as well. She's the daughter of Christopher Plummer, which probably a lot of people know already. She had a Golden Globe nomination in 1993 for a TV movie called Miss Rose White. She was also a 3-time Emmy winner. One of those Emmy wins was for Miss Rose White, also Outer Limits, and then Law & Order Special Victims Unit, and also nominated for LA Law. So she's very much an accomplished actor in a whole bunch of minor roles as well.
Mostly for So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Yeah, So I Married an Axe Murderer, Freeway. She plays the mother in Freeway. Yeah. At the beginning of that movie. And then we have Mercedes Ruehl. She was the big winner in the awards season for this movie. For the Oscars, Mercedes Ruehl won the Best Supporting Actress award, which I think we've probably mentioned before. Nominees for the acting, or for the Oscars, I should say. Robin Williams was named lead actor nominee, but lost to Anthony Hopkins. Original Screenplay was also nominated, but Thelma and Louise won. Nominated for art direction and set decoration, but that went to Bugsy, which we've already covered.
Interesting.
The original score from George Fenton in this movie was also nominated, but Beauty and the Beast won, Alan Menken. And this movie was not nominated for Best Picture. Golden Globe side of things, it won 2 awards. One, again, for Mercedes Ruehl. And then also Robin Williams did win Best Actor in a Comedy and or Musical. Also nominated for Best Picture for Comedy and Musical, but Beauty and the Beast won that. Nominated for Best Director, but Oliver Stone won for JFK. And Jeff Bridges was nominated also for Best Actor Lead, but lost to Robin Williams. So, those are your major awards there. Terry Gilliam was not nominated for anything. Again, I think it might have had something to do with the fact that it was a little bit too samey to his other work. But he had previously been nominated for Brazil Screenplay, not for directing. And he's, obviously well known in the past for Monty Python stuff. So, yeah.
This is his second movie about the Holy Grail.
It is. Maybe not his last. I haven't seen some of his other later works. But it seems to be recurring.
The Holy Grail?
Yeah, he tends to tie a lot of those things in quest movies and like the Don Quixote one and whatever else. It's sort of all kind of loosely themed along each other.
I used to watch Baron Munchausen as a kid, but I haven't seen it in a while, so I'm not sure if that includes anything like that.
I don't remember either. I saw that as a kid, and at that time I wasn't too into it.
Oh, really?
Like it was
all over the place.
Yeah, it was weird and wacky, but not for, like an 8-year-old kid, I guess. So yeah, Richard, the writer, was nominated for Best Screenplay for the Oscars. He had previously only done, his major one before this was a movie called Rude Awakening, starring Cheech Marin and Eric Roberts. So a big step up in terms of quality. And then he later did things like Bridges in Madison County, and Has Two Faces, and Horse Whisperer. So he went a little bit more on the sappy route of things. Unfortunately, no MTV Movie Awards. Like, not even to mention, this is the first... No, the second one.
Was this too highbrow for the MTV crowd?
I guess so. Yeah.
I don't think this would have been something for the teens or the early 20s.
Didn't really tailor to that crowd, I guess.
For it to be nominated.
Best comedic performance from Robin Williams. You don't want Robin Williams at the MTV Movie Awards? Come on. Last week when we talked about Sleeping with the Enemy, I think it was more important to look at past historical reviews. I didn't do that at all for this one. I didn't really see how it was received, so I don't know about that. But box office-wise, it was the number 31 movie of the year in terms of box office box office performance, made about $42 million. So, decent success, but I think honestly it's probably one that is, deserves more recognition than what it even is getting now.
Yeah.
So shall we talk about pop culture of the week?
Yeah, I usually try to find something that is newsworthy or true crimey, and once again, I couldn't find anything that happened this week of September 20th, 1991. But looking for other stuff like songs or TV, video games, I always try to find something like books. And I came across this BBC Music article entitled, "Was September 1991 the best month ever for albums?" And I'm going to just name a couple albums that were released in September 1991. The first one being Nirvana Nevermind.
Okay.
Released September 24th, 1991.
So just a few days later.
Yeah. And we have the same day, Tribe Called Quest, the Low End Theory album was released. So those are two albums that, I do listen to.
Yeah. Very different, but very quintessential.
On September 17th, 1991, was Guns N' Roses' Use Your Illusion 1 and 2.
Ah, okay.
That was released around that time.
I just remember the Weird Al TV bit about people standing in the store waiting for Use Your Illusions 3 through 50.
Oh. And another one that we both probably don't care about that much.
Okay.
Was Red Hot Chili Peppers' Blood Sugar Sex Magic.
No.
Which, neither one of us are real Red Hot Chili Peppers fans.
No, I'm not.
They have a few songs I like, but
yeah,
that was
when
on
they
the
come
top.
On, we typically find something else.
Yeah, we usually kind of make fun of it and then and then change
we say,
it.
"Oh, it's Heyo Seyo," and then
turn it off. There are. I'll add this. Well, we'll add this on the website because there are other ones. There, Simply Red. The Orbital had their first album, and then there's Swerve Driver, Talk Talk, Laughing Stock was released that month. I just thought that was interesting, where there's a whole article about these influential albums that were released that same month and year.
All around the same time. 90s was probably the best decade for music.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's like one of the most varied decades in terms of, it has something for absolutely everybody.
Moving on to TV, TGIF, Friday night. What was going on? If you weren't seeing The Fisher King, were you watching TGIF? So it's always the 4, Full House, Family Matters.
Usually Perfect Strangers this year.
Perfect Strangers, and then a 4th rando.
Seems to be random, yeah.
This time, it's a full hour of Family Matters, no Full House.
Okay.
This TGIF Friday.
So was it okay? So it must have been a special event of some kind. Let me guess.
Oh, okay, all right. Because I know the episode, and if you want to guess, go
it's
ahead.
just a pure guess. I don't know anything about it, but I'm assuming maybe the Walt Disney World trip, because I know that some of these Disney shows went to, or some of these ABC shows went to Disney. It's like cross promotional thing, and they probably split that up into multiple episodes, and so they might have done an hour long for that. That's my guess.
Nope. So the episode is entitled Boom.
Okay.
And it is about Carl, who is, at the precinct, and there's a bomb hidden inside, and it will go off. So this is interesting. At the precinct...
Die Hard.
Yeah. At the precinct, Carl is exercising on a treadmill, and then he discovers that the treadmill was booby-trapped.
Oh, and he has to keep walking, speed?
Yeah. With a bomb. So he has to keep walking until the bomb is diffused.
Okay.
I don't know if I saw that episode.
Does Steve Urkel diffuse it?
I have no idea.
Does he talk somebody through how to diffuse it?
And then he says, "Did I do that?" At the end. Did he put the bomb there?
Did he in fact do this?
So yeah, that was a full hour. And after that was the pilot episode of Step by Step.
Ooh.
So we are introduced and that stayed for a few seasons.
Yeah.
And then after that was Perfect Strangers. And then the TV show we talked about earlier, Baby Talk.
Okay. So they went an extra half hour then.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Right. There's always something different with the TGIF
I know.
lineup.
You never
So
know what
far.
you're gonna get. It's pretty good.
All right, on to the music charts. So as of the week of September 20th, 1991, the number one song in the U.S. was Color Me Bad's I Adore Me Amor.
Okay.
I have that tape, and I used to play it a lot. I like that
believe
song.
you. Not my favorite Color Me Bad song, but okay.
No, I
It's
mean,
probably a good
that's one of
second place.
the 3 to 4 songs
Yeah.
that they released.
It's second of the 2 that I know, so yeah.
The number one song in the UK was Bryan Adams' Everything I Do It For You. And this is something that I wanted to ask you earlier, and I was going to wait until we talk about it now. So video games wise...
I know video games.
Yes. This week, popular video games... for September 20th, 1991, was Bill and Ted's Excellent Video Game on NES. Did you play that? Or do you have
I
it?
rented it. I did not have an NES growing up. My parents allowed us to have the Atari 2600, as well as a Commodore computer, which had games, but we were not allowed to have an NES growing up. So I was able to rent them with neighbors or cousins or whatever. That game is very infamous for being very bad.
Oh, yeah.
It is very obtuse in its objectives. Basically, you have to run around these different timelines and try to find different objects that are located in various spots of the, I don't want to say city, but, whatever time period you're in. And they're always in a different spot, and you don't know where they are, and you have to, jump up and down in order to find them.
Okay.
Like that. So it's really crazy and awkward and,
I don't
and
think
stupid.
I've ever played it.
Yeah, it's meant it's known to be one of the worst games.
Oh, okay.
So does not live up to the standards of the movie. Well, hopefully at some point we'll get to a happier Bill and Ted memory for 1991 here.
Yeah.
With Bogus Journey. So ratings and rankings on your 1 to 5 star scale, where would you put The Fisher King?
I give this movie a 4. This is my first 4.
That is your first 4. In my 0 to 4 star scale, with the half stars included, I'm going to give it a 4 as well, honestly.
Okay.
When I was a kid, like I said, I didn't really fully grasp what I was watching. I think I probably had a completely different mindset. I probably had the wrong mindset going in, and now coming at it fresh, I loved it. I was enthralled the whole time. I was, fascinated by the characters. I thought the performances were amazing. So yeah, it's one of my, it's going to stay on my top 10 for quite a while, if not
For
throughout
this
entire
year, or?
for 1991.
Okay.
Yeah. It'll stay on my 1991 top 10 for a good long while, if not throughout the entire project that we do.
Okay, cool.
So, would you watch it again? Everything's worth watching once, but would you watch it again?
Yes, I would watch this again.
Yeah, absolutely. There's enough layers, there's enough depth. You could probably find references to things that happen later in the movie. If you go back and watch it again, there's probably hidden little things in there, like the Pinocchio doll and how it's a reference to him, saying...
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really speak about the Pinocchio doll, but that probably was just, in my mind, maybe that was a reference to Robin Williams. He was stuck in this spot, and then, when Pinocchio becomes a boy, after Robin Williams gets the Holy Grail, he becomes a man. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, it could be partly that. I also remembered that when Jack was on the phone with Edwin, he was talking about He mentioned the Pinocchio story at the same time. He said something like, about you think Pinocchio is a real story or something like that. And then he gets gifted this Pinocchio doll shortly after. So I think there's a bunch of different meanings and things you can draw from that. So yeah, watch it again, look for some of those things. And if you want to watch The Fisher King after listening to our in-depth review, as of this recording in March 2021, it's available on Fubo TV, Pluto TV, digital rental, VHS, and DVD, along with 4 trailers. As always, check your local listings. As for us, you can listen to us on all your major podcasting platforms. You can email us at 1991movierewind@gmail.com. And of course, you can always follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Letterboxd. Just search 1991 Movie Rewind or go to 1991movierewind.com for the full list of movies, along with show notes and more. Next week, we're going to go in a completely opposite direction, and we're watching Double Impact. And if you want to watch that with us, you can find it on Prime, Hoopla, digital rental, VHS, or DVD. We'll see you there for some fun action excitement. Good night.
Thanks.